Yeah, it's season one. Okay, beautiful. All right, with that being said, why don't we go and just jump into it? We're going to have Bella, the narrator, read it out for us. So why don't we go and just jump into it, yeah?
Volume 5, Chapter 1, The Holy Country of Millis. My name's Rudius Grirat.
Oh, God. Oh, God. I'm not sure if you guys could hear that, but my name is Rudy is good at. Oh no! You guys picked this. This is your poison now. Now go with it.
I was a grown man in my previous life, but in my current incarnation, I'm an 11-year-old pretty boy. Magic is my field of expertise. I can cast customized spells without the need for an incantation, a trick that's earned me quite a bit of recognition. About a year and a half ago, I was teleported to a friendly place known as the Demon Continent, thanks to a large-scale magical disaster. Unfortunately, the Demon Continent happens to be on the other side of the planet from my homeland, the Fitoa region of the Kingdom of Azura. Getting back was going to require traveling halfway around the world. I promptly became an adventurer and began the long, hard trek back home. 18 months have passed since then. In that time, I made my way across the Demon Continent, and now, I'm past the Great Forest as well.
I love the context that he gives. All right. And I genuinely mean that. I love the fact that they are willing and able to go ahead and go and like the way he does it is still in an upbeat demeanor, which is I was teleported to a friendly place known as the Demon Continent. DW, thanks so much for the Sundere. DW, yo, you're amazing. How are you guys doing? Are you guys practicing some self-care? Guys, drop some Doritos for DW. Granted, another guys, we're being visited by a bunch of friends and family and all of this, guys. I can't say this enough. DW, I always mess up your name, OBG gamers. I see, I always say OBG gamers, OB gamers, and literally DW granted, all of them incredible content creators. Just show them some love and support whenever you guys can. Like, they're absolute goats. Appreciate it, OB, dude. Yeah, I really, really do. But also, Sundar Owl Blue, I'm always under stuff. Incredible individuals. He self monologues like this. He has an audience, and it's the best. Well, I mean, and that's the purpose that I was getting at. Is what is the self talk that you do? Sundar, dude, I appreciate y'all. DW, dude, you guys are great. You guys are absolute goats. I'm dropping some Doritos for y'all. Which is like, what does your self-talk look like, right? And I think that's a big purpose in that, right? And I often go into people's, like, for example, I often ask people like deep questions, or I try and ask them deep questions in order to see their monologue at work. I'm pretty sure DW, OB, and Sundere are able to go out and say it, like, and mention that, hey, I've been asked some pretty deep questions, and my stream randomly we get deep with that, because it's true, like. I love to see people's self-dialogue, their self-talk, right? Because the way that you describe yourself for a scenario or an event says a lot about you. So whenever we see our man describing this, even as a friendly place, even as a joke to himself, that's huge, right? That's an individual that is still trying to go out and see like the upside of certain situations. So like, I don't know how else to say it other than like continuously following the train of thought here. Someone that I guess might need to grow a little bit quicker, is starting to grow a little bit quicker, and maybe his self-talk might be a big issue when it comes to having others recognize it as well. Anyway.
Zictor's note. This is just to offer a bit of context.
Yep.
Zictor's note. I skipped the city's description so we can go quicker into the good stuff.
Thank you.
Our immediate priority at the moment was finding an inn. This was always our first order of business whenever we reached a new city. Zictor's note, can you see where I am going with this? Most of the inns in Millishan seem to be located some distance away from the main avenues, so we ended up wandering through side streets for a while until we found a little cluster of them. After a quick look around, I settled on a place called Dawn's Light Inn. The place wasn't too close to the city's main streets, but it was a good distance away from the slums. The area seemed safe enough. It offered all the amenities I was looking for, and seemed to be priced to attract C or B ranked adventurers. The main downside was that it didn't seem to get much sun, but I could live with that. Once we had our room, the next step was to unpack and get ourselves organized, after which we'd head out to visit the town's most important locations, particularly the local guild. If there was any time, we'd engage in some idle sightseeing, then head back to our inn for a team meeting. That was our standard routine at this point, at any rate. Couldn't we have stayed at a cheaper place? Asked Eris, looking around the inn quizzically. I had to admit, she did have a point, especially since I was always lecturing her and Rudyard about being careful with our money. At the moment, however, we had some financial breathing room. We'd been paid well for the 3 months we spent on guard duty in Doldia, and the Beast Folk's head warrior, Guys, had also given us a nice chunk of change. Those funds added up to a bit more than 7 Millis gold coins. We'd have to earn more money here eventually, but in the short term, we could afford a few modest luxuries.
So I think Rudy as a character at least is evolving and is actually adulting. Realistically, what we're seeing is a Rudy that is adulting. Is a Rudy that, yeah, he does care about others, but at the same time, he's willing to go ahead and admit his mistakes and willing to go ahead and, like, you know, open up and talk about some of the things that may be happening around. This is one thing I love about the novels is it doesn't matter if I read it or if somebody else reads it. The descriptions of it really makes it feel like you're there, right? Like, there's a difference between, like, pretentious writing so difficult that people can't understand, versus layman's writing so that others can understand you, right? For example, if I showed you guys a lot of my doctoral writing, you'd be like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, a majority of people, like even other people in this ID program are like, what the fuck are we saying? Like, you know, because we're citing pretty much every single little thing, using high level vocabulary, so on and so forth. Arian Kells, yo, welcome on in. How you doing? I know you're lurking, but I appreciate you, my friend. But like, there's a level that we approach scenarios. There's a level that we approach things, and when it comes to this writing, it just feels a lot more realistic and down to earth than pretentious, and that's a big concept in there. Spazi, nee Heineken. Echt? Jargon is terrible for communication. It is. It really is. That's what I'm saying. I really, really like this. I like the fact that, like, this is how the author decided to approach writing.
Zictor's note. I wonder if you'll have noticed how dense this paragraph is, just because you never mentioned it. Then again, maybe you never mentioned it because the anime does not emphasize it and we hadn't given you any chapter focused on this until now. Here, we see 2 extremely important things about his personal growth. The first one is his concern for basic life skills.
Yeah.
We see hints of this since Volume 1. In his first life as Eartheus, he never had to care about money, or about washing his clothes, or other practical aspects of life. I can't think of any story that worries about this, but it is important in this one because it is part of his development. He is taking charge of his life.
But I mean, even past that, my friend, like, even just past jumping into that, right? A big portion as to maybe why I don't comment on it is because that's the appropriate need for survivals in himself, right? So, for example, because he is traveling, it is not a direct thing that, like, pops up. It's almost a given. And you're right, it's almost like a guaranteed given, where it's like secondhand focus rather than first-hand focus. Because first-hand focus is like, all right, he should know about this, so he's already jumping into it. And you're right, it is something that deserves to be called out. Absolutely right with that, because he is sort of like teaching them basic life skills as well, right? Search for an inn, for a place to go and sleep, get your water, sleep, all of that stuff, which is nice. But it's also him being able to go out and accept criticism and be with others, lend a hand, and all of these wonderful concepts. I think Rudy has grown a lot since his time in the Demon Continent. 150%. Yep.
This actually ties in nicely with the world building and how amazing the whole adventuring system is built. I should write about it at some point. Help. The second bit is him leading others.
You should.
In his first life, he only ever cared about himself. Now, he has to care for Rudyard and Eris. Yes, Rudyard too.
Oh yeah.
Rudyard could always live off the land, so I guess he forgot how to take care of others and how to function in society. I have been taking notes to write about his relationship with Rudyard. It's pretty interesting, not sure if it fits a chapter reading though. I'll look. Point being, Rudyard and Eris let him take most logistical decisions.
So my thing with Rudyard, though, is if we look at the triangle, hold on. If you look at this baby, where is he? Before he met Eris and Rudy, where is he? Oh, and chat goes silent. Right. You asked chat a good question. Yeah. Well, realistically, he had nothing. Yep. He could get his basics if he wanted to, right? The base 2 needs are met. He can get pretty much, he can feel secure, he can get his safety, he can get his food. I know. He can get water, he can get warmth, he can get rest. However, where is he going to struggle, or what's his next point of growth? Right here. Getting intimate relationships and friends. After he gets that, what do we start seeing? Oh, they start working on his prestige and feelings of accomplishments. This is why I find Mushoku Tensei's writing to be phenomenal. And this is phenomenal. This is why I'm so excited for season 2. Because if even looking at Rudyard like this, right? He had his safety needs met. What happens when he meets Rudy and Eris? Oh, they become friends. They become really vulnerable with one another and talking to one another, and even started seeing each other and teaching one another in different ways. He starts, like, his credibility starts going up, and, you know, while some people fear him, some people start going ahead and adoring the group, and, like, you know, he starts feeling accomplished. So it's like boom, 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 boom. It's growth. It is phenomenal growth, and that's exactly why I love and I appreciate it. That's just phenomenal fucking writing. All right. I'm bringing this back in.
And it's easier for them to go along. This is amazing growth for him.
Yeah.
It can't hurt to upgrade every once in a while, right? Sometimes it's nice to sleep in a bed that's actually soft. Zichter's note, as someone who has backpacked Asia and Europe, can confirm. I'd say 1 to 2 days of rest for every 7 to 10 days of hardcore backpacking is a safe ratio. A quick glance over at Eris suggested she wasn't entirely convinced.
Hold on. I have a story.
I went ahead and
You're right. Backpacking, I think backpacking can be hard for a lot of people. I think I freaked some people out, though. Story, little lore time. Hi, I'm you know, I sound weird. I'm Mexican, you know, Mexican American. So oftentimes we sleep on the ground, you know, sometimes because there's like a weird saying of like, hey, this can fix your back if you're having back issues or whatever. So I don't mind sleeping on the ground and stuff like this. And like, how do I put it? Went backpacking with a couple of friends like across Europe, and they had to set up like their tents to get this nice and comfy like air mattress and all of these wonderful things. I'm like, all right, night, and I just knocked the fuck out on the floor. And they were like, what the fuck? What the fuck? All of them were like, no, get in the air mattress, it's okay. And I'm like, no, the ground is fine. Like, that ain't backpacking, bruh. But it's nice though. It is. You know, you go out, you adventure into the wild, you set up a tent, you keep going along your way, it's, you know, to your final destination. I don't really fucking care. I can sleep anywhere. That's the beautiful aspect of slip. Do we have a what? Anyway.
Opened the door to our room anyway. Zichter's note, since they'd been following his rules, it's hard for her to fully understand the exception, but she trusts him. It's also extremely important that he listens to them and makes the effort to try to convince them.
What do you mean Kyle's is stalking me? Kyle's, go back to your stream. I love you. Kyle's, you're amazing, Kyle's. I don't know why you're stalking me. I have a British lady reading this light novel for me, but you know, you should maybe not stalk me because otherwise I'm going to go in there full force and like Goblino mode. You don't want me to go full Goblino mode. Also, thanks so much, Wolfie. I appreciate you for saying that. Oh, Sussy Baka. I know. Actually, Kyle's is going to be on with us in a little bit. So it'll be really interesting because we have a couple. She's sleeping. They're taking a break watching you. Oh, are they? Wolfie. No, 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 no. When they come in, we'll play some games or something in a little bit. I think it'd be interesting. But also appreciate the heads up. I hope you guys were resting because that's a lot. You guys have been streaming for a while, especially she's been streaming for a while.
A world where leaders simply dictate. It was a neat, tidy little space. I appreciated that they'd already provided us with a table and chairs in the far corner. The door had a functional lock, and the windows came with shutters. It wasn't quite comparable to the business hotels back in Japan, but by the standards of this world, this was definitely on the nicer side.
So immediately, looking out for that safety, that's awesome,
now that
dude.
we reached our room, we had a few things to take care of. First, our equipment needed its regular maintenance. Second, we needed to take stock of our expendable supplies and make note of anything we were running low on. Then it was on to drying out the beds, washing the sheets, and a bit of general sweeping and cleaning. This was all totally routine for the three of us by now, so we got to work without exchanging words. By the time we finished up, the sun was setting and it was getting dark outside. This made sense, since we'd only reached Millis in the early afternoon. Still, we weren't going to have time to stop by the guild today after all, not that it really mattered too much. After a quick dinner at the bar next to the inn, the three of us went right back up to our room. Once we'd settled down on the floor in a circle, I cleared my throat and got things underway. All right, I hereby call this dead-end team meeting to order. This is our first meeting since we reached the capital of Millis, everyone. Let's make it one to remember. I had to actually say applause, please, and smack my hands together a few times before Eris and Richard hesitantly followed suit. Honestly, those two never failed to disappoint.
Bruh. I think sometimes this hits in a timely manner. Had a meeting today I had to go to for work, even though it's my off day. I have to still show up to a stupid meeting. And it's like, all right, guys, and today you're going to find out about why you need to do more sessions, even though we've already clocked you out for every single hour in your thing. Yeah, punchy, 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 punchy. Punchy, 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 yeah, let's go. You have to do more sessions. Whoa, and you're not getting paid anymore. Whoa, yeah, let's go. Punchy, punchy, punchy. You like you, you know, like people trying to hype us up and shit when in reality it's a big goofer. It is nice though that Rudy is able to go ahead and like have this conversation with them, you know, have this openness and like literally kind of run it like a business. Like, these are our expectations. Let's go ahead and have this conversation and everything because it does need to happen. It's the corporate culture for real, for real, for real though. Like, these are all important elements that often get misrepresented by a lot of people. And that's what I'm saying. Like, for me, I think this is awesome. The fact that it's gone through like that. And he's going through and making sure that all of their basic needs are met. That is key for any form of survival. And that's what I think it's awesome.
Zictor's note. Rudius now represents every single annoying HR person trying to make the team building activity seem cool.
Yeah.
Then, we've finally made it this far, folks. That's a real accomplishment. There was some real emotion in my voice as I said those words. It had been a long, hard slog getting to this point. We'd spent more than a year on the Demon Continent and a good 4 months in the Great Forest. Now, at long last, we'd reached the region of this world where humankind resided. The most dangerous part of our trip was behind us now. From here on out, the roads would be well maintained, and the terrain mostly nice and level. Compared to what we'd been through previously, it should be a total cakewalk. Zictor's note, his sense of accomplishment.
I mean, all things considered, before we get to Zictor's note, like, yeah, no. So realistically speaking, though, when does a person start to grow? Without even going into this, when does a person? Oh, is there some echo going on? It might be transferring for some reason onto my. I don't know. It's acting weird. From the voice, from the AI voice. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what to do with the AI voice. But realistically speaking, yeah. When does a person start the introspective process? Yucky, yucky. I know, Wolfie. When does a person start an introspective process, ladies and gentlemen? Bella is reaching out of the matrix. She's trying to get us. She's trying to get us from his or her habits. Bro, Bella might be a little scary. It comes in and out. It's bearable to me though. Okay, it's bearable so far. It's a lot simpler than that. When does a person start the introspective process, guys? That's why I throw it up, because it's a good learning opportunity for everyone. Boys, men, gentle peeps. Yeah, a person starts the introspective process down here. A person starts self-actualizing down here, guys. Yep. Wolfie. No, it's usually after. A lot of people start changing when they have aspects of this pyramid met. You don't have to meet all of them, but you at least have to have like an area checked off in most of them, right? So he already said he has his esteem needs covered. So what starts happening because of that? They start actualizing, they start introspecting, they start growing as individuals. And this is probably why a period of time for that is literally Rudy starting to grow, Rudy starting to self-actualize and become big. Wolfie, whoop, I guess wrong. Wolfie. We can put this to any character, including Subaru, including others, including whatnot. Like, at what point does a person genuinely start changing versus changing for the like necessities of like the environment? I'm going to grow now. You're going to grow now? Okay. Appreciate you grown. That's sort of what I'm hitting at. It's interesting.
Is real. When you fail so much, it becomes very hard to recognize the...
All right, is Bella better now, or is she still echoey? Kyles, we appreciate you. Kyles McGiles, how you doing? Yo, Kyles, I'm finishing this up, then I might bring you in if that's cool. You let me know, though. You let me know. Hey, yeah, you're a rock star. Anyway.
The small successes, so this moment is very big for him, even if other people don't realize it. Of course, in terms of sheer distance, we still had a very long journey ahead of us. The distance between Azura and Millis was roughly 1/4 of the planet's circumference. Zictor's note. I'm really curious if the original Japanese actually was circumference.
Sounds good, Kyles.
Or maybe an untranslatable word. Just a small bit of distraction from the author, since everything else indicates that the human world is flat. No matter how nice the roads were, we weren't going to manage that in a week. In fact, we probably had another solid year of travel ahead of us. Given that, our biggest long-term problem would probably be financial in nature. For the moment, I'm thinking we should stick around in this city for a while to save up some money. Why? Asked Eris, furrowing her brow. It was a reasonable question. I tried to answer as clearly as I could. Well, we've made it through the Demon Continent and the Great Forest just fine, but things tend to be much pricier in human territory. I thought back to the market research I'd conducted on our way over here. I never got the chance to poke around in Zantport, but I still remembered what most things went for in various parts of the Demon Continent and in the small town we stopped at past the Blue Wyrm Mountains. Pretty much everything across the board was more expensive in Millis and the Kingdom of Azura. This inn's nightly rate would have been completely mind-boggling by the standards of the Demon Continent.
So question for y'all. What's more important to you as an individual? A good story, good characters, good economy, like, written through an economic perspective, good religiosity. A chapter with Kyles would be cool again. Well, that's up to Kyles. That's if Kyles and Wolfie feel up to it. That's up to them. If they feel comfortable, I'd be more than down to go ahead and do that. But for you guys, what is more important for you guys? Like, good setting, good story, good characters, good music. Like, what outranks something? Good characters, good philosophy. Okay. And characters to push it fair. Even if it's a fantasy or sci-fi, I want to believe it. Okay. Do you guys pay attention a lot to like the religious elements in the story or no? Because this is actually interesting. I like that Victor is so observant with a lot of this, but I'm kind of curious. You do? Okay, Touch Me does. I do. Okay. What about the economy as to what may be happening there, or the political structure? Good characters suspend my disbelief. Take me out of my trauma. Wolfie. Because I genuinely find that as like an interesting concept, forbearance, or whatever you guys want to go and call it. For the stuff overall. Hey, something is bound to be weak if the stuff is overall is good. Yeah, yeah. I think overall, because Mushoku Tensei has such good character development and all of that stuff, but there's bound to be weaknesses in almost every story. But I just find it interesting that this is sort of like the way that it goes, and also the fact that Rudy's able to go and pick up on more than what a normal person would. You know, that means that if he were playing video games and stuff, this is something that he takes into account. You know, if one of them is good enough, I'll accept the others. Mostly, I just prefer stuff that leaves me with strong or happy or sad emotions. Fair. So like for me, this is giving me Earthiest vibes, which is like as Earthiest, what did he focus on when reading a novel or playing a game? The economy, right? Because he's able to go out and understand like, oh yeah, I need to take care of my economical resources here. I need to go out and do certain aspects like this. Yeah, then a normal person wouldn't. Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I'm asking that, because in this world, he's picking up on a lot more stuff than what like normal people would. Yep. Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and continue.
Zictor's note: the economy is another thing that isn't very well done in Mushoku Tensei. Not as bad as religion, but when most things in the world building are well done, this stands out. It's kind of funny how the video game skill of visiting markets becomes useful here. This is the second time in the story. The first one was when he stumbled upon silent magic. Humankind were a greedy bunch, evidently. We cared much more about money than any of the other races did.
Yeah.
Zictor's note: I guess humans in his world aren't very different from us.
Lol.
The value of Millis currency is very high. Only Azuran coins are worth more, as far as I know. That does mean everything is expensive here, but it also means that jobs at the local guild will pay very well. Instead of stopping for a week at every town like we did on the Demon Continent, I think it's more efficient for us to stay here for about a month and save up lots of cash all at once. Once we had a nice pile of valuable Millis coins in our pockets, the rest of the journey would go much more smoothly. They'd go a long way toward getting us through the southern regions of the central continent. For one thing, we don't know how much they'll charge a supered for passage on the boat to the central continent, right? I said. Eris grimaced at the word boat. Our previous sea voyage was a miserable memory for her. I felt very differently, of course. My recollections of comforting her while she was seasick continued to be a source of great pleasure. Zictor's note: still a creep check. All things considered.
I'm not sure if that is creepy though, considering he didn't do anything to her. Like this, like. Because the recollections of comforting her while she was seasick, like that's one aspect where I'm like, at least in the anime, he didn't do anything to her as much as he just like made sure that she was okay, because that's where genuine worry, unless something else happened in the novels that wasn't shown in the anime, you know. But yeah, like anything to get close to a woman is how that reads to me. Nothing else happened, because like if anything, like he put up his boundaries and he sort of knew like, okay, that's pretty bad. So like it just sounds like, okay, like oh thought crimes don't exist. boys.
I think we should focus on earning money in Milishan for a while, then head straight for the Kingdom of Azura. We might not be able to do much about improving the reputation of the Supered for a while, though. Is that all right with you, Rudyard? Of course, Rudyard replied, nodding slightly. I hadn't really expected him to object. At this point, I was helping out with that because I wanted to. Personally, I would have been happy to settle down here for a while and devote some real effort to changing the public's opinion of his people. 6 months or a year of diligent work in a major city like this could have a far-reaching impact.
Right.
That said, we'd already spent a year and a half just making it this far. I didn't want to drag out this marathon of a journey even longer than necessary. I mean, I'd been missing for 18 months now, right? Paul and Zenith were probably worried sick. Wonder what they're up to right now. Oh, whoops. I never got around to sending them a letter, did I?
Okay, and this for me exemplifies everything. He wouldn't have thought to send the letter until now. Do you know why? Because of this, baby. Because of this, baby. He wouldn't have gotten to. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to go and send the letter because of this, baby. Ooh, let's go. Because he's finally hitting his esteem needs and everything here. So yeah, he didn't have his basic needs met. Generated script. Thanks so much for following. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Like surviving, yeah, because now like he didn't have his needs met, so how can he self-actualize and learn? Yeah, how do I rewind? Are you talking about for the Oshinoko video? All you have to do is click on the VOD and it should start up for you, and you should be able to move around there. I'll eat some Doritos for this. Yeah, baby. Well, let's go. Actually, that's actually really good character writing. Angie Upta, thanks so much for the follow. I appreciate you, my friend. How you doing? You practicing that self-care? I hope you are. What the fuck happened? 7 hours. Generated script. It was like over 5 hours. Yeah, it's over 5 hours of Oshinoko, my friend. Episode 3. I love you. Oh man, yeah, we went a little in the first place, I'm pretty sure the demon continent doesn't do letters. Too dangerous on the road, right? But it's also like because of all the safety and other needs met, it can be quite a bit. So that's why, like, going through aspects like this, we can see, or I can understand why Rudy wasn't able to go and send the letter. And I think this is powerful writing once he writes it like this, and once we're able to go and understand that.
I kept meaning to do that, but events were constantly conspiring to distract me. It must have slipped my mind half a dozen times by now. Well, no time like the present. Zictor's note, this is a really important detail that clearly demonstrates how he was so overloaded that there wasn't much room in his mind to think of the people who he thought were back in Fittoa. Okay then.
Wait, who has a YouTube?
Let's make tomorrow an off day, shall we? This wasn't a new concept for us. I'd announced off days several times in the past. At first, it was out of concern for errors, but at some point, I started calling them primarily for my own sake. The girl never showed any signs of fatigue, and Rudyard was the toughest man I knew. I was definitely the weakling of this party. Zictor's note, his insecurities preventing him from seeing how valuable he was to the party. Or he's a shonen battle otaku who thinks fighting is more important than everything else. Of course, I was much stronger than I'd ever been in my previous life. I couldn't hold a candle to these two,
hope you're doing well,
but
by
I
the
was
way.
on the level of a typical adventurer, at least. Physical
So my question for you guys, you just asking, of course, Wolfie, no worries, my friend. Typical adventurer. Oh, sounds like me procrastinating my YouTube channel. Yo, Zictor, you should start your YouTube channel, dude. But also, I wanted to go to say, if we're at a state like this, I'm sorry, but like, if their top priority is fending for themselves, is finding themselves, is asking aspects for themselves, yeah. There's a like, if Nick Miramashi and I suddenly got teleported into the demon continent, our top priority is survival. You know, like before we even start sending letters or whatnot, like, you know, it's probably finding a place to eat so that we don't die or whatnot, right? If we have money, we're more than likely going to spend that money on eating and keeping surviving than like buying a postage note and a letter and sending that home. It's going to be like our focuses are going to be exactly on that until we're able to go ahead and like be comfortable in the environment that we're in. So
exhaustion wasn't usually an issue. Mental exhaustion, on the other hand? That was a different story. For one thing, I still had some hang-ups about killing living things. The more we went around slaughtering monsters, the more stress built up inside me. I wasn't calling this particular off day out of fatigue, though. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget about writing that letter again.
Right.
If we spent tomorrow gathering information, checking out the guild job list, and dealing with all the other things on our to-do list, it was going to slip my mind yet again. This time, I was going to take a day and finally get this taken care of.
Oh, generated script. Appreciate it, man.
Note, sounds like me procrastinating my YouTube channel. Are you feeling poorly again, Rudius? Zictor's note, this is probably why she thought he was frail, as we read in her chapter. He didn't eat much, because he didn't like the food. He also wanted to rest because of mental exhaustion, but this is probably a concept people don't seem to be familiar with, so she assumed sickness. No, this one's a little different. I need to take some time to write a letter. A letter? I nodded at Eris. We should let everyone back home know that we're okay, right? Well, all right. I guess I'll leave that to you, then. Yeah. I'll take care of it. Tomorrow, I was finally going to get this done. I'd take my time, think back to my days in Buena Village, and write to both Paul and Sylphie.
Aww.
Back when he shipped me off to serve as Eris' tutor, Paul warned me not to send him any letters, but under these circumstances...
Bro, talk about like pretty... like a traumatic like incident in that case, right? Dad tells you, hey, don't write any letters. Incident happens. Kid now has a moral dilemma. Does he break what dad told him to do, or does he do it? And this is me just talking generally speaking, right? You tell your kid, hey, I don't want you to go ahead and like do this, but it's essential for kid to do this now, and they have the resonating image of their father telling them not to do this. And all of a sudden there's anxiety and there's moments of stress and whatnot, things that pop up, right? That's why I'm like, as we're going through this, I'm listening and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a lot of fucking work. That's a lot of actual like, I'm sorry, my mom tells me to do one thing and then my dad tells me to do another thing. All of a sudden I'm caught in the middle and my anxiety skyrockets. I'm like, wait a minute, what do I do? ¿Qué lo que hago aquí? No sé, o sea, no hablo español. Then they're like, yeah, or no hablo inglés. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, we speak Spanish too, dumb. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I can't get out of this. This is a bit difficult. That's why I'm like, oof.
Surely he wouldn't mind. Zictor's note, Paul's prohibition of sending letters probably had something to do with Rudius procrastinating the letter. The odds of a letter reaching them weren't that good, of course. Back when Roxy and I were corresponding between Azura and Chiron, it felt like maybe 1 in every 7 letters we sent actually got
1
through,
in 7.
so we always had to send out multiple copies of the same message. I'd have to do the same this time as well. What will the two of you be doing, by the way? I asked. Eris replied promptly and energetically. I'm going to go slay some goblins. Goblins? Wait. Goblins? Are these the goblins I'm familiar with? Like yellow-green guys, maybe half the size of a human, with the crude clubs? The ones that always feature prominently in fantasy-themed porn games? Yeah.
I hope he didn't actually say fantasy-themed porn games, like... What? 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 And he just dropped that. He just. Sorry if you hear the dog. He just dropped that on Eris, like, "Hey, yo, you know the fantasy themed like porn games? Like, she doesn't probably doesn't even know what the fuck porn is or porn games are. What are you doing? Ah!"
I overheard someone saying they've got lots of them popping up around here. That's exactly the sort of thing adventurers should be dealing with, right? Eris replied cheerfully. To be perfectly honest, I'd heard a bit about them on our journey. In this world, goblins were basically thought of as a kind of vermin. They reproduced rapidly and caused all sorts of trouble for people. They were intelligent enough to communicate verbally, so they might technically be classified as demonkind, but the vast majority of them lived like wild animals. So when their numbers started getting out of hand, they'd typically be exterminated. All right then. Rudyard, can you go along with her and... Oh, come on. I can handle a few goblins on my own. Eris interrupted indignantly. The look on her face suggested she was more than a little offended.
Yeah, no. I think with that, like, there's always a need to be a little careful and be open to talking about that. It's awesome that they've been growing, right? It's awesome that the inner monologue, all that said was goblins, but it's awesome that they've been growing, Koneko, and like you know, like Rudius has been growing and open to this, but at the same time, he needs, like, as clearly noted here, they can now start handling themselves, and he doesn't have to be as active in trying to make sure that everyone's okay, and that's a big portion of everything. Like. Yikes, yikes.
Zictor's
Hold on, what the heck? Alright, we're good.
note, this probably played into her own insecurities. Rudius, you idiot. What was I supposed to do here? Eris was a very competent fighter.
Yeah, she was.
And goblins were E-ranked monsters, not exactly a challenging foe. They didn't live on the demon continent, so I'd never actually seen one. But from what I'd heard, even a child who'd learned some basic swordplay could handle them, no sweat. Maybe it would be slightly overprotective to have her take our bodyguard along. After all, the girl could handle herself just fine against even B-ranked monsters, but still. When a girl adventurer gets beaten by a goblin, that's an instant sex slave bad end, right?
Wait, what?
I didn't know that much about the goblins of this world, but that was definitely their whole deal back in mine. And I mean, if I was the lucky goblin who managed to knock Eris unconscious, I'd certainly enjoy myself. Wouldn't anyone? Assuming they were a little green monster, of course. I totally would. Just hypothetically. Zictor's note, random thoughts are random.
That just sounds like someone that played a lot of porn fantasy games, and that's exactly what they think that they're into. Because it's like, okay, can they even modify, or can they even meet with humans? Because if they can, okay, I can see how this may go wrong. But if they can't, it's just better to assume that they would kill them in the first place.
If something that terrible happened to Eris the moment I took
I haven't
my
seen
eyes
Goblin
off her,
Slayer.
I'd never be able to face
Not yet.
Giselle or Philip ever again. It's all right, Rudius, said Rudyard, snapping me out of my reverie. Let her handle this one alone. Zictor's note, wise Rudyard is wise. That was unusual. Normally, he stayed out of these sorts of arguments. For the last year and a half, Rudyard had been giving Eris lessons on how to fight all sorts of different monsters and enemies. His educational methods were a little too obscure for me to follow, but she'd clearly learned a great deal from him. If he was convinced she could do this, it was probably going to be all right. Okay then.
Right.
Don't get careless out there just because they're weak, Eris. Yeah, I know. Make sure you're well prepared before you head out, too.
Aww.
Of course.
Aww.
If things get dicey, just turn tail and run, all right?
I do. Raccoon
Right,
taught me
right.
about the Vaporeon copy pasta.
Okay. And if worse comes to worst, just grab the little creep by the hand and scream this goblin's a molester at the top of your... Oh, enough already. I can deal with exterminating some goblins, Rudius. Whoops. Now I'd gone and made her mad. Zictor's note, these small idiot moments are so important to really flesh out the characters in such a subtle way. Maganotsense truly understands human nature very well. To be honest, I was still a little anxious about this, but I'd just have to put my faith in the judgment of our veteran warrior. Zictor's note, good call. In that case, I'll say no more. Good luck out there, Eris. Thanks, she said, nodding in satisfaction. Don't worry, I've got this. How about you, Rudy?
It's like trying to make someone proud, and I think that's such a beautiful aspect. Like legitimately trying to make someone proud and trying to be there for someone and trying to get them to see you in a certain way. My heart breaks every single time. I think this is something that I genuinely find beautiful, because it's like the way he writes these characters is a way that, like, you're writing natural interaction, you're writing people being people, you're writing people expanding and all of these wonderful things. he's so used to looking after her that he panics a bit about not being able to cute interaction, but such a real stressor. It is, honestly, Koneko, it really is. It is such a real stressor for a lot of people, and a lot of people always seem to downplay it a little bit when they shouldn't.
Jerd, what will you be up to tomorrow? I think I'll go say hello to an acquaintance of mine. That.
Hello?
Volume 5.
Oh God, what happened? I think I was.
These small idiot moments are so important to really flesh out the characters in such a subtle way. Maganotsense truly understands human nature very well.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
To
just
be
push me
honest,
back.
I was still a little anxious about this, but I just have to put my faith in the judgment of our veteran warrior. Zictor's note, good call. In that case, I'll say no more.
We're going in reverse,
Good luck
boys.
out there, Eris. Thanks, she said, nodding in satisfaction.
Bella, why'd you go in reverse?
Don't worry, I've got this. How about you, Rudyard? What will you
Everything's
be up
fine.
to tomorrow? I think I'll go say hello to an acquaintance of mine. That had to be the first time I'd ever heard him use the word acquaintance. You don't say? I didn't know you had any of those, actually. Well, of course I do. From what I knew of his backstory, Rudyard had been wandering the wilderness all by his lonesome for quite some time, but after 500 years of that, I guess he'd probably run into a few people just by chance. It seemed a little strange that one of
thanks,
those
Wolfie.
people would be
Appreciate
living
you.
all the way out here in Millishan.
Hope you're
Then
staying
again,
safe.
this was a huge city, so maybe it made sense statistically. What kind of person are they?
A warrior.
A warrior.
I mean, the fact that he has people out there and friends and individuals he can go reach, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're there immediately, already says that, like, I guess for Rudyard, like, he's had a whole on life about everything, you know? He's had an opportunity for growth. He's had an opportunity to make friends and all of these wonderful things. It's like, that's such a big impact in terms of him actually having people out there that he might want to go and connect, but he didn't connect to because of so on and so forth, because he's taking care of them. Wow. I know Rudyard actually has different ways, different builds and different whatnot.
Zictor's note, these two simple words say so much about Rudyard's character. His worldview, his values are all encapsulated in this short sentence. There is a lot about him that simply couldn't be included in the anime, and there isn't one specific chapter that lays it out. It's all in the small details, like his interactions with Rudius in Volume 3, his relationship with Gustav in the Doldia village, and how he thought it was disgraceful that they would accept Rudyard's help. This reread is helping me collect details such as this one to someday make a video about him. Do you guys think it would be interesting? Oh. Probably someone he rescued in the wilds of the Demon Continent back in the day or something, huh? Well, one way or another, I wasn't about to pry. I wasn't Rudyard's father and didn't feel the need to interrogate him on who he was hanging out with in his free time.
And with that, I think this chapter added a lot of humanity to these characters, if we're going to be realistic about it. This chapter added a lot of, like, interesting concepts as to who these characters are, where they're going, what they want to go ahead and do, and it builds up a lot of the different concepts that we see later on, you know? I just, for me, it's one of those times, one of those situations where you look back and you're like, wait a minute, okay, what is going on and why are certain things happening? Let me I like that a lot. I've never read the novel. You never read the novel? Oh, what do you mean? Yes, it would be interesting. Go take your first step on your YouTube channel, mate. I know. Zictor should, because that's actually really, really good. Like, for me, it's like understanding the novel adds more, like, any chapter that we read from the novel adds more depth to these characters, but at the same time, it adds a lot more just everything overall for every character out there. That's what I find interesting. That's the concepts that I'm like, okay.